Welcome to Understand All. I'm your host, Aslakir Gareleaf. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating journey through the history of income redistribution, from Thomas Paine's groundbreaking ideas to the visionary concepts of Martin Luther King Jr. and beyond. So, buckle up and get ready to explore the captivating world of economic justice. Let's start with a surprising fact. Did you know that the idea of a universal basic income dates back to the 18th century? That's right. In 1797, Thomas Paine, the revolutionary thinker and author of Common Sense, proposed a form of basic income in his pamphlet, Agrarian Justice. Paine suggested a payment of $15 to every person upon reaching the age of 21, funded by a 10% inheritance tax. Now, 15 might not sound like much today, but it was a significant sum back then. In fact, according to the Bank of England's inflation calculator, $15 in 1800 would be equivalent to around $1,000 in 2021. Paine's proposal was truly revolutionary for its time, predating modern discussions of universal basic income by over 2 centuries. But why did Paine advocate for this idea? Well, he believed that the earth and its natural resources were the common property of all humanity. In Agrarian Justice, Paine argued that landowners owed a ground rent to society, which should be used to provide a basic income for all. He saw this as a matter of justice, compensating individuals for their loss of natural inheritance due to the introduction of private property. Think of it like this. Imagine if we all had an equal stake in a massive trust fund, but some people were lucky enough to be born into families that controlled more of that fund. Paine's idea was to level the playing field by ensuring everyone received a share of that common wealth. Fast forward to the 1960s, and we find another visionary thinker taking up the cause of economic justice, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. While most people know Dr. King as a civil rights icon, fewer are aware of his radical economic ideas. In his 1967 book, Where Do We Go From Here, Chaos or Community?, Dr. King advocated for a guaranteed income as a way to abolish poverty. He saw this not just as a matter of charity, but as a fundamental right, arguing that the solution to poverty is to abolish it directly by a now widely discussed measure, the guaranteed income. Dr. King's vision of a guaranteed income was part of a broader call for economic rights, which he saw as the next frontier in the fight for equality. His Poor People's Campaign, launched in 1968, demanded an economic bill of rights that included the right to a decent job, affordable housing, and a guaranteed annual income. Tragically, Dr. King was assassinated before he could see this vision realized, but his ideas live on and continue to inspire advocates for economic justice today. So, how do these historical ideas translate into modern income redistribution methods? Let's take a look at a few examples. First up, progressive taxation. This is the idea that those who earn more should pay a higher percentage of their income in taxes. It's kind of like Robin Hood, taking from the rich to give to the poor, but through the tax code. In the United States, we have a progressive income tax system, with rates ranging from 10% for the lowest earners to 37% for the highest as of 2021, according to the Internal Revenue Service. But is this fair? Some argue that progressive taxation punishes success and discourages economic growth, while others see it as a necessary tool for reducing inequality and funding public goods. Next, let's talk about the hot topic of the moment, Universal Basic Income, or UBI. This is the idea of giving every citizen a fixed amount of money each month, no strings attached. Sounds a bit like Thomas Paine's idea, right? Well, it's not just a thought experiment. In fact, there are real-world examples of UBI in action. Take Alaska, for instance. Since 1982, the state has been giving every resident an annual dividend from its oil wealth through the Alaska Permanent Fund. In 2020, that dividend was $992 per person, according to the Alaska Department of Revenue. And then there are the numerous UBI pilot programs and experiments happening around the world, from Finland to Kenya to California. These studies are testing the effects of UBI on everything from poverty to health to employment. The results? Well, they're mixed and hotly debated, but one thing is clear. The idea of a guaranteed income is no longer just a fringe concept. But UBI isn't the only game in town when it comes to income redistribution. There's also the negative income tax, or NIT. This is a twist on the basic income idea, where instead of giving everyone a fixed sum, the government would provide a guaranteed minimum income through the tax system. If your income falls below a certain threshold, you receive money from the government. If you earn above that threshold, you pay taxes. Interestingly, this idea has been championed by both left-wing and right-wing thinkers. Even free market economist Milton Friedman supported a version of NIT. The appeal of NIT is that it could streamline the welfare system and reduce bureaucracy while still ensuring a basic standard of living for all. And let's not forget about wealth taxes. These are taxes on the total value of an individual's assets, rather than just their income. The idea is to target the concentration of wealth at the very top of the economic pyramid. According to the Federal Reserve, in 2020, the top 1% of households in the US owned 31.4% of the nation's wealth, while the bottom 50% owned just 2%. Wealth taxes aim to address this inequality by taxing the billionaires and mega-millionaires of the world. But they're also highly controversial, with critics arguing that they discourage investment and entrepreneurship, and are difficult to implement and enforce. So where do we go from here? As we've seen, the debate over income redistribution is as old as America itself, and the ideas of visionaries like Thomas Paine and Martin Luther King Jr. still resonate today. But the challenges we face in the 21st century are also new and complex. Automation and artificial intelligence are transforming the nature of work, climate change is exacerbating inequality, and the COVID-19 pandemic has exposed the fragility of our economic systems. In this context, the ideas of guaranteed income, negative income tax, and wealth taxes are gaining new urgency and relevance. But income redistribution is not just a matter of economic policy, it's also a moral and philosophical question. What kind of society do we want to live in? One where the accident of birth determines your life chances, or one where everyone has a basic foundation to build a decent life? One where the gains of economic growth are hoarded by a few, or one where prosperity is shared by all? These are the questions that thinkers like Paine and King grappled with, and that we must continue to wrestle with today. As we look to the future, we can also imagine new and innovative forms of income redistribution. What about a universal basic inheritance, where every young adult receives a lump sum to start their life? Or a citizens' wealth fund, where the returns from national assets like natural resources and public infrastructure are distributed as dividends to all? And in a world where artificial intelligence and robots are doing more and more of the work, maybe we need to start thinking about redistributing not just income, but also ownership of the robots themselves. The possibilities are endless, and the conversation is just beginning. But one thing is clear. The idea of a guaranteed basic standard of living for all is not going away. It's an idea that has been with us for centuries, and that will continue to shape our economic and political debates for centuries to come. So what can you do, dear listener? Well, start by educating yourself. Read up on the history of income redistribution, from Thomas Paine to Martin Luther King Jr., to the experiments happening today. Talk to your friends and family about these ideas and debate their merits and drawbacks. And most importantly, get involved in your community. Support local initiatives to combat poverty and inequality, and make your voice heard in the political process. Because ultimately, the fight for economic justice is not just about abstract ideas and academic debates. It's about real people, struggling to make ends meet and build a better life for themselves and their families. It's about the single mother working 2 jobs to put food on the table, the laid-off factory worker wondering how he'll pay the rent, the college graduate drowning in student debt. These are the people who stand to benefit most from a fairer, more equitable distribution of wealth and income. So, let's carry on the legacy of visionaries like Thomas Paine and Martin Luther King Jr. Let's imagine a world where poverty is a thing of the past, where everyone has a stake in our collective prosperity, and where the economy works for all, not just the privileged few. It won't be easy, and there will be obstacles and setbacks along the way. But as Dr. King reminded us, the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. With courage, compassion, and a commitment to economic rights for all, we can bend that arc a little faster and build a society that truly lives up to the promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness for all its members. And that's our journey through the past, present, and future of income redistribution. I hope you've enjoyed exploring these ideas as much as I have, and that you're leaving this episode with a new perspective on the possibilities for economic justice. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. Keep learning, keep questioning, and keep fighting for a world where everyone can thrive. Until next time, this is Aslakir Gareleaf, signing off from Understand All. Stay curious, my friends.